So, I have been thinking a lot about kind of as we've been doing these Cornell notes, how much information y'all have been getting directly from me, as well as how much information y'all have been putting into your own Cornell notes. And I wanted to make a couple of videos just to help you draw on some clear connections between what we're doing in the Cornell notes, what I'm going to be looking for when I actually check you on an assessed one that's formally assessed for beginning, progressing, meaning extending, and how it all ties together. The Cornell notes are a lot. It can feel like a lot that you're doing at one time. But the reason that it feels like that is because I'm also actually scoring you on multiple things. So if you look, my grade book, when I plug in your grades, nothing spectacular, but I have to choose which standards I grade you on. We've talked about these in class. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. But under each of these big standards, these are the ones that on your report card you'll be seeing this weekend or your parents will be seeing this weekend. I go in there and then there are specific things that I'm looking for. So we've talked about all of these. Um, so I just want to draw on some connections between some of the parts. So I'm going to do these in short, hopefully 5 minute or less videos so you can see clearly what is going on in the Cornell notes versus what I'm going to be looking for and what you should really be thinking about when you're doing the Cornell notes that will help you demonstrate your understanding. It's not just getting the meeting, but it's understanding how to do the Cornell notes well so that you can more effectively understand how all of these parts of history come together. It can feel disconnected, right? You're reading all these things and you're like, okay, I'm just getting thrown a bunch of information about imperialism, about colonialism, but really all of these things are getting tied together in the Cornell notes so that you can see or you can explore British imperialism in a specific way, and then eventually explore British colonialism, which is an element of British imperialism in colonies that they had on your own. So that is a quick overview. I am going to start off with looking at the source evaluation. So we did this beginning part in class together. And in here, this part really is an evaluation. This is just giving me the general information that you should be able to identify in a source. This next part, it clearly states source evaluation of perspective. So when I'm looking at evaluation, when I actually give you, when I actually check you on your understanding of this, and I go into the grade book, it's under inquiry and research, and nothing really complex. It just evaluates the perspective and quality of information critically. So in the Cornell notes, really, you go through these 5 questions, and the more detail and information that you can give me in these, the more I'm able to see that you understand the perspective of a source and that you can evaluate it critically. So if you were to say, what do we know about this person or organization? And all you say is William Z. Burns writes books. That doesn't show me that you're actually evaluating the source. Just, yeah, he writes books. I can write books also. It doesn't mean that I have a perspective on what I'm writing, but adding something like writes books about the British Empire and British history gives me more clarity that you've done the research. Google Books says, and then it gives me a specific quote. That's another thing that's saying that you're able to evaluate this source. The perspective missing is another, the number 3 ties basically into number 2. Number 4, that perspective missing is really where you're able to also show again that you can look closely at the source and identify, evaluate what this source has, what it doesn't have, and consider how you might find this in future sources. So if you're struggling here, you might be able to say, well, I could look up in Aborigines, I could look and see if there are Aboriginal tribes from Australia who have academics who have written about this subject. right? So you could add some more details, and that's what's going to demonstrate to me that you're evaluating critically. And that is going to help you get up to that meeting that you want, and start to get you towards that extending, really showing that detail, not just giving me a brief overview. So if you look here, um, on that evaluation, sorry, I scrolled past it very quickly. Does this source support my information needs? So in class, I was having you just say yes or no, but you really should be adding a little bit more. And that is something that you can start working on at home and individually so that you can say like, yes, it does do something. It does support my information needs because, and that's that evaluation element. Okay, so that is just a little overview on one of the parts of the Cornell note-taking document that can help you demonstrate evaluation and help you get to showing me that you can evaluate this perspective and quality of information critically, that keyword critically, not just looking at it and saying it's good or bad, but looking at saying why it's good or bad, in depth on how it's good or bad.